Hey guys, we're here for another NRL Fantasy Fanatics video where we're here with Dan from Footy Brains. How are you, mate?
Yeah, doing well, Will. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm not doing too bad. How's the team been going so far?
To be honest, mate, mine's doing pretty shit. So I'm struggling out there in the 30 to 40K range. But luckily Josh, who I also do the pod with, he's doing quite well. He's in the top 2000 at the moment. So I'm relying on him to bring our show home at the moment.
Yeah, it's a bit like
Yeah.
me and Charlie right now.
Yeah,
One
it's
struggling and
pretty
half the
yeah,
reason.
it sucks to be honest to be out that far, especially if you didn't have Haas from the start. It's rough.
Yeah, well, half the reason for our ranks being so low is not having Haas and not captaining him. And this week, do you think it's just simple to say that Haas is a must-have?
Yeah, we recorded our pod earlier today, and yeah, he's an absolute must have. We talked about him and a couple other players like Terrell May and Jamie Humphreys. Those three are like must haves in your team going forward. May just consistently hitting 70s, Humphrey consistently hitting 70s somehow, and Haas is just the obvious captaincy option. It looks like every week now until he shows a break in his form because he's pumping out scores every week.
Yeah, he's been doing massive. And the thing for me about Haas is like he's never been a massive offloader, but this year he's just found that offload and they have it on spam pretty much. It's like he's playing Xbox. You just go out, press that button, chuck it
Yeah,
out the
chuck it
back.
out the back door.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Which is yeah, I think he's playing incredible football, and for me, I think he's going to be probably. I think you have to bring him in this week. Like he could get another 80 and be 1 million by next week.
Yeah, it's only going to take, we was talking about it, he's only going to take a 68, I think, a 68 or a 69 for him to hit a mill. So, yeah, he'll easily be a mill next week. And if you don't get him now, you're going to have to break your team even worse to get him in next week.
Yeah, and I think there's really no better week to get him in with Watson gone, Ponga on the bye, and Cleary gone. Like I think this is the screaming week to get him in if you don't already own him.
Yeah, and against the Dolphins as well, where historically teams actually score quite well against the Dolphins. And Haas in his last three has averaged 79 against the Finns. So, yeah, it's going to be another huge one for him.
Yeah, he's gone 78.7 now. That's incredible. Do you have
Yeah.
any worries about his minutes that he's been getting recently though?
Haas, no, I think it's going to fluctuate a little bit. Like it was interesting, like looking how he was kind of being managed by Maguire in the first two rounds, and then he just played most of the game last week. I think that's probably going to happen a little bit. It depends on the flow of the game, and if there's injuries or whatever to the forward pack. But Haas, I've no problems with him getting 70s, 80s, even off the back of 60 minutes because he's shown that he can do it so far.
Yeah, and I think his like next couple of rounds there just scream could be getting a lot of attacking stats there. And I think it's just
Yeah.
one that if you don't have it, you can kind of wave goodbye to your overall rank.
Yeah, I mean, what's the average against the Tigers? I'm just trying to look at the side.
66.2 against the Tigers,
Yeah, he's going to be a monster over the next couple of weeks, and
then
I mean the draw's pretty good.
67.7 against the Roosters.
Yeah, yeah, he's solidly a must-have.
Yeah,
I think at the moment. Yeah,
I think you got to get him in your team this week. But another
yeah,
guy that is fairly brought in this week and Cleary to Jaden Campbell has seemed to be quite an interesting trade there. Do you have any interest in this trade at all? Or this bringing of
uh,
Jaden Campbell?
yeah. Look, I like Jaden Campbell's a buy. I don't necessarily like Cleary to Campbell just because Cleary you're going to have to get him in again in the next couple of weeks anyway. So I don't want to waste a trade going sideways to someone and then having to trade another gun in my team to go up to Cleary. So I think I'd hold that trade from Cleary to Campbell. But if you can get Campbell in another way that you know, isn't too destroying to your team and the balance that you have, I would get him in if you can, because now that they don't have Kinney, they've got De Groot at the back. Brimo didn't really do much in the halves last week, nor has he done much so far to start the season. And Campbell seems to be doing just everything at the moment. Foran's not back until like mid-season because of his
Round
bicep
10, I
tear.
think.
Yeah, Campbell's going to be doing a lot.
Yeah, I do think that he'll do really well and probably could be the best or second best wing fullback option this year. I
Yeah,
wouldn't be
absolutely.
trading Cleary at all to him, but it looks like he's got the kicking meters too on top of last year's stats where he was killing it, the goal kicking, and a fairly, I'd say, good draw coming up the next couple of weeks. So I think if you can maybe trade a Watson to him, I'd only do that. But I think if you have a Cleary and a Ponga, I'd probably hold those two as I think they're both pretty sideways. Do you agree on the
Yeah.
Ponga take two?
Yeah, look, I don't have Ponga and it's kind of burnt me so far this season, but I'm anti-potting Ponga a little bit. Fingers crossed for my own team that he doesn't do great. But yeah, I think if you have Ponga, you probably want to be holding on to him. The draw for the Knights is too good, and Ponga's just killing it. Yeah, he had a down week last week, but you can't really blame him. I don't think he'll be fine when he comes
Yeah.
back next week.
I don't think you can trade Jaden Campbell. You're getting rid of one wing fullback keeper who's probably going to be the highest averaging to probably the second highest averaging. It's a bit of a.
Yeah,
I feel both of those trades are a bit sideways.
yeah,
Do you
exactly.
have any interest on Tony Kayatoga as a cash cow this week? Got the second row starting spot and probably would have gone to 45 in that last game if he didn't get that HIA there.
Yeah,
Personally, it's between him or Tom Jenkins for me. Which one would you lean towards?
yeah, I was very much on the Cowtoga train until Walker signed for Parramatta earlier today. I'm still leaning Cowtoga just because Jenkins has a lot that can happen to that position. He's got it on merit so far, but because they can bring in Garner, they can move Alamotti there. There's a lot of different stuff that can happen in that Panthers backline that could force their hand and Jenkins drops back to reserve grade. Um, to be honest, I think most players or most coaches are going to have to go for one of these two players this week, just given Haas being so expensive. They're going to have to, upgrade someone to then downgrade someone else. So I don't hate either of them if you're getting Haas in this week. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of go for one. Katoa's probably got the spot for longer, and you don't really know. Dylan Walker's not like a well-known edge either, is he? And
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to move Jermaine Hopgood there as he's been so good at 13 for them. So I reckon he's probably just got a spot for it's like kind of his spot to lose if he plays bad and a lower break
Yeah.
even of 8 too.
Yeah, exactly. I honestly don't know what's happening with that Parramatta backline. Like Cartwright and Madison in reserve grade is a bit strange. Jack Williams, I think, was on the bench. So, I mean, there's a lot of people that can play on an edge. I just don't know if Riles is just going to keep shifting them around or what's going to happen, to be honest. So, I mean, there's always risk, right? We can't just predict the next month of football, but
Yeah.
I think Kautoga's got a decent shot if he can show some form.
I think he's a little bit less risky than Tom Jenkins spot wise, but
Yeah.
he looks like a pretty good player. Like 37 tackles for 4 misses is quite good there, and 22 for 2 in the last game. Like he looks like a pretty good defensive player there. So I do think
Yeah.
he can definitely hold the spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ryan Pappenhausen, one that I brought in last year. Heard he's not kicking this week, which goal kicking because of his injury, which I'm not as big on him. But do you have any interest in him now on a very, very good Storm side with a bit of a weaker draw there? Do you think that he will kick next week too if his ankle is better?
He'll go back to kicking, yes, if his ankle's better.
Yeah,
But I'm still skeptical over Pappenhausen. A lot of his scores have come through just pure attacking stats, and even last week with the goal kicking and a try, he only managed a 36. So, like at his price, we would have been cheering for this when he first had that breakout year a few years back. But given the quality of winger fullbacks and the cashies that we have at winger fullback at the moment, I'm a little bit off Pappenhausen, but this is where I disagree with my co-host on our show because he loves Pappenhausen. He thinks he's a bit of a pod to bring in. Me, not so much. But yeah, I think he's still a good option. Or most winger fullbacks are good options because they can just go big on their week. And against the Dragons this week, I don't think he's a bad option at all.
yeah, I think he's quite a good mid-range option. Like I don't think there's many. It's either top guns or real cheapies. Like there's not many mid-range you look at, and if he is goal kicking, he would be a better option, especially on a very good Storm team where
Yeah.
you saw like against the Eels, you had Nick Meaney get 16 points in goal kicking, which just adds
Yeah.
to his base there. So I do think you add that on top of it, he scores really well there. Like if that 36, if he kicks the whole game, it gets to a 40, and that 70 turns in. If you had 16 points there, that gets to an 86, and you're just like, he's killing it. But I think we know what he can do, and especially with that spine there. And do you think with Hughes being out there, do you have to do more?
I don't know if he'll do more coming off the back of an injury this week. I think Munster's got to step up a lot this week,
Yeah.
which is half the reason I'm holding him in my team before rage trading him, which was what I was planning on doing to Haas. But I do think he'll score well this week either way. It's just the Storm have to keep performing well and hold their form for Pappenhausen to do well because when the Storm is scoring, Pappenhausen will be there with them basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the Storm, you can kind of rely on them to keep their own spot or their least good scoring nature. Uh, an interesting pod this weekend. I don't reckon you can really anti-pod Payne Haas, but could be an interesting guy considering the start of the season he's had is Toby Couchman. The only worry for me is Couchman is with his minutes with them signing David Clemmer. Do you agree with Couchman and that being a bit risky for him?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same reservation I have about Stewart as well off the
Yeah,
bench. He's been getting pretty good minutes as well. I just don't see how he's going to keep up 60 minutes on the park, Couchman with Clemmer there. Although Clemmer, you could say the same thing for him, right? His minutes were kind of diminishing over the last couple of years as well, if you look at him historically. So maybe Clemmer comes in and only plays 30 odd minutes and it gives more space for Couchman to play. Yet to be seen. We have really no idea what's going to happen yet. So I don't hate going Couchman as a bit of a pod play, but yeah, he's not without his own risk.
yeah, it does come with risk. Like you see, he has gone massive minutes in the last two games there, and
Yep.
he does have a very good PPM historically. But who knows if he's going to be able to hold that? And he's a younger player, which means he is just improving every year. And Clemmer is getting older. But for me, I'd like to see a week and next week, like he's not going to make it. If he gets a 40, he doesn't make that much there. And I think it's just worth seeing a week to see how many Clemmer gets. And against the Storm, he could miss a lot of tackles there.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Against the Melbourne Storm, it's going to be a rough one for the Dragons this week, I think. So yeah, it might be worth waiting to see.
Yeah, but that dual position is handy.
Yep.
I have toyed with trading out Cleary this week. I won't, but a player that I thought about bringing in, and I also almost think is a better option than Jaden Campbell, is Jamal Fogarty. I think last year he absolutely killed it. He started off the season well too. For me, he just has base stats for everything, like so much kicking meters, runs for a couple meters there, and just so many tackles there. Do you have any interest in Jamal Fogarty at all?
I wouldn't say I have no interest. It's just that I have so many halves in my team already. I think
Yeah,
I've still got 7 halves in my team. And I just don't know how to fit him in because he's at such a good price. Like anything under 700K for Jamal Fogarty is probably pretty good. He's going to consistently get you 50s. Last week was an outlier because the Raiders were a bit rough
kick
around the
meters were
edges.
really
But
far down.
yeah, I would love to get him in, but there's just so many halves that you're trying to make cash off. Like most people have a Humphreys, have a Smith, have a Jack Cole. There's all these halves that you want to be making cash from. To fit Fogarty into that picture is just, yeah, too hard.
Yeah, the only reason I go Fogarty I was to downgrade Cleary, one of the gun halves, and I won't. But if you were, that's probably the only reason I go Fogarty. Otherwise, I think it's just a waste. Like you already have Humphreys and Cleary, who are two very solid halves. Smith's putting up good scores. Jack Cole has no Nathan Cleary this week, which is where he should put up a 40 there. But I think he's scoring incredibly, isn't he?
Yeah, it's actually just interesting to see there because Fogarty's only 2% owned currently,
Yeah,
and 7 teams in the top 100 have him. So that's an interesting stat there compared to the rest of the top 5,000. So yeah, maybe the top 100 knows something we don't, or who knows? Actually, I'm not even gonna comment on that. I'll leave that be.
yeah, So yeah, Nathan Cleary, I've got as a hold this week. I think he's been the fantasy goat for many years, and you don't sell keepers. Doesn't matter his break even. If you were worried about him losing price, you probably shouldn't have started with him. He could
Yeah.
go down. The only argument is he could go down to 700K, but it's Cleary. We've seen what he's been able to do for many, many years. Probably, I think he's got the most hundreds in fantasy ever. Do you disagree that you can't sell Cleary?
Yeah, you can't really sell him unless you're desperate to get Haas in, and that's the only way. Yeah, you just can't sell him because you only really lose that cash that you invested in him if you sell him. So if you sell him this week, it means that you've lost what he started like 7 or 880. I think he
Yeah, he
started
lost
at. So you lose that
101K.
100K. Yeah, you lose it straight away as soon as you hit that trade button. So I'd hold on to him, and he'll make that cash back by the end of the season comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, Nathan's been a proven gun, and yeah, I mean, you don't sell keepers, but he'll make it
Exactly.
back. And you see the scores here, like he comes back from that injury and he puts up a 76, then 112. Like we all know what Nathan can do.
Yeah.
And he has historically been a slow starter too, which is something that goes in his favour, I feel like. Historically a slow starter, and with Haas doing so well, you don't really need Cleary as the main backup. Like he's your backup captaincy option now, I'd say.
Yeah.
So
At the moment, until Haas shows, any signs of, I guess, less minutes or less like offloads, tackle busts, like, yeah,
yeah.
you lock in Haas every week until
And
Cleary's back. Yeah.
he looked on for a good score in that game too. Like he's gone 5 from 7 minutes there. So I think it's stupid selling him.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, do you think Connor Watson is a sell? he has scored quite well when playing at hooker there and had just gone 65 and a 90 and looks set it for again a 55 there. Will probably be the highest average in hooker there, but I think Brandon Smith could come back. He will be playing for them this year and then Rabbitohs next year.
Yeah, I think Brendan Smith isn't back until like mid to late season anyway. So he's still a while off and he's coming back from an ACL injury. So it's yet to be seen. I mean, Robbo might just opt not to play him at all to give Zach Docker-Clay a bit more time. And if Docker-Clay stays in the team, it just means Watson's probably going to be playing 70 to 80 minutes every week anyway. So I don't want to sell Watson, but if I had to choose out of those, top three, Watson, Cleary and Ponga this week, Watson's probably the first one to go, and I'd only be trading him if I needed to get to Haas. So ideally, I'd hold Watson, but I can understand if people are selling him to get Haas in.
Yeah, the reason I'd sell Watson is probably the most consistent out of all three. Maybe not more consistent than Cleary, but it's just he doesn't have those massive games in his reservoir. Like he scored at 90 with 2 tries, but it's like if Ponga and Cleary get 2 tries, they're going into the 110,
Yeah.
120 mark there. And
Yeah.
I think there is other better hookers that are like not better hookers, but hookers that are doing a job. Like Peter Mamazoulis has started scoring well there, so I don't really think Connors hasn't like as much needed as everyone says he is now.
Yeah, well, if you've got Mamazelis, do you have a backup hooker then? Like, who do you bring in to partner him? Because you can't just run him the whole season. You've got to have
Not
someone
like
to fill in for buys and whatnot.
you do have like a Blake Brayley and the Wade Egan who are putting up better scores. Appy Coruscant is putting up better scores too. Like there's enough pod hookers there, and if Watson was to go a couple more low games, he could get down to 650K, and you could look at bringing him in with probably a harder draw too. Like you got the Broncos and Penrith who have two pretty strong middles there, where he could get a couple missed tackles and go a bit lower there too.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. It's just interesting to see Watson's averages against those teams. He actually averages the most against the Broncos. I
Yeah.
think out of all the teams in the comp somehow. So yeah, quite interesting. And I think
Well,
Panthers are up there too.
yeah, he scored that double against the Panthers there, which really helped
Yeah,
them.
that's
But they
why. Yeah.
had a stinker of a game that week.
Yeah.
So not really much you can look into that at all. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Good
Kalen
point.
Ponga, another one. Do you think he's a strong hold when playing a fullback this year and last year? He's been absolutely killing it there. For me, he's got goal kicking. He's so electric. I think wing fullback spot is also hard to fill this year. Like there's not many keepers going around, and the keepers that are going around are performing well. So yeah, do you think Ponga's a hold?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If you can hold him, you hold him. I don't even think if you can, you should be holding him no matter what. Really, you can use him for a loop this week as well. So he's perfect.
Yeah, he's gone like 62 and 82. I mean, he's always going to have low games being a fullback there, but they get absolutely destroyed. And the Knights are a relatively good team there, so I do think they'll bounce back. And as you said, that draw is really nice. Like they probably have two top eight teams in the next seven there with Tigers
Yep.
and Sharks, and even the Tigers, even they'll go for them. They're probably being a bit biased.
You think is that your call for Tigers being a top 8 team? Is that
Yeah,
what you meant by that?
yeah, that's what I'm
I
hoping.
thought you were talking about the Panthers and the Sharks, and you're calling out the Tigers. Love that. Didn't
Yeah,
even mention the Bulldogs that finished top 8 last year.
so they got the Dogs too, to be fair. Yeah, but
Fair.
now, do you think the only thing about him is do you think him being out will affect his score, not having as dominant of a second rower there?
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting shout, right? Because Lucas was really the only change for the Titans game for the Knights, and really they it just looked like they had a huge drop off
Like you see that
in
average
form.
of 64 with Lucas and without Lucas, obviously got a massive sample size, but it's only a 52.2. Like I don't think you can read into that much because even without Lucas there, he was still a keeper. But I think he looks that 64 average with Lucas, and Lucas has gone for 6 weeks. Like
Yeah, I think it helps when you have like obviously middles and edges that can push you down the field. And Lucas was one of those big, yes, he was in the back row, but he was dangerous on an edge. And Ponga really liked going to that side of the field. So obviously having him there hurt against the Titans. But if you watch that game against the Titans, it seemed like the ball just like every time it went to Ponga, he was just offloading it to someone else. He wasn't taking the ball to the line like he always does. So it was kind of interesting because he was looking for someone to rely on to take the ball forward, but there was no one really there to do it. So it's an interesting point to make, but I don't think it's going to impact him that much overall. And plus, Lucas is only going to be gone for another 2 weeks post their bye anyway, so it's not going to
yeah,
impact him too heavily.
another 2 to 3 weeks. Like,
Yeah,
and he has put up not enough good scores there without Lucas, where you can kind of say that he is a hold. Like, and he's going to go. Lucas isn't that influential. Like, it's not like he's missing a gun half there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So
AJ
actually,
Brimson,
I think it's closer to 6 weeks for Lucas. I don't know why I thought it was 4, but yeah,
yeah,
I still short term. It's not like you've got 28 rounds this year, so you're going to be fine.
yeah. So AJ Brimson breaking into 50 now. Do you think he becomes a sell? Not playing good football. I was worried on him at the start because of that missed tackle numbers. Where do you sit with AJ?
Yeah, it's the missed tackles. They're absolutely killing him, to be honest. I really like Brimo. I brought him in this season because I really liked how he played in the preseason, and the Titans looked really good with Kinney, Campbell, Brimo working together. Now that Kinney's gone, Brimo's out of form. They're really going to be relying on Campbell to do a lot of the work because, yeah, I don't see Brimson pulling it back. I could be wrong. He could come out and smash it, but I think I'm going to be jumping off him to go up to Haas this week.
Yeah, he hasn't looked good at all this year, and so many injuries for Brimo. Like, he hasn't looked to get injured, but 50 break even, he could lose about 400, get down to 400k there. And I think
Yep.
now you got to sell him while he's a bit higher. And if you can get the house, like, got to do what I did, where you trade Watson to the house, then Brimo down to one of the cheaper guys there.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because that 13 just kills you, doesn't it?
Yeah, that hurts so much. Like, and in a game where they were, I wouldn't say dominating the Knights, but they were in control for most of it because the
Yeah.
Knights didn't look that dangerous and still couldn't capitalize on a score. It was yeah, disappointing.
So where does Reece Walsh become a buy? Because I feel like he's always relevant, and at 570k for Walsh is very, very cheap. He's down to 73 break even. So if he goes for another 40 there, he's 530k. And is there with that draw, is there a bit of interest in him next week when he comes back to hopefully a bit of form? But he has made 11 errors in 3 games. So, well, what are your thoughts on Walsh?
Yeah, he's very much on my radar at the moment, Walsh. That -1 that he scored a couple of weeks ago was very out of the ordinary, and I don't expect that to keep happening going forward. So I am absolutely keeping an eye on Walsh until he bottoms out. At the moment, his break even is 70 odd, I think. So
Yeah.
he's still got a couple of weeks to go before he, breaks even and his price starts to turn around. And I'm hoping that happens at around the 500k mark. And then, yeah, he'll be prime to buy pretty much. So I would watch Walsh with keen interest if you're looking for a cheap winger fullback that can average quite well because the Broncos are looking really good.
Yeah, but if you Walsh owner, would you sell him or nah?
Nah, he's already lost too much money to sell
Yeah.
him now. If you sell him now, you're basically just admitting that you're don't trust him pretty much, and every other fantasy coach in the world is keeping an eye on him. So yeah, you've got to hold on to him. He'll turn it around pretty easily.
And he's on a top four side who could win the premiership this year. And it's Walsh. You know how electric it is. It takes him one run to rack up 40 points, and he's celebrating, being like, "Oh, look at him! Walsh got an 80, and no one owns him."
Yeah, big words saying they're a top 4 team. But yeah, I don't disagree with you to be honest. They're definitely in the mix.
Yeah. So if you were to antipod Haas again, do you have any interest in Cam McInnes? He's been getting the minutes you kind of wanted. You see McInnes when he plays over that 50-minute mark while playing at lock, he averages 58.9, which puts him in keeper territory. And if Haas was averaging 65 and McInnes was 55 at this stage, you'd be saying yes. But I don't think you can antipod Haas averaging 90. But do you have any interest in McInnes at all as a buy? He's in my team right now.
Yeah, look, I would have interest in McInnes. The problem is he's just kind of priced in and he's just plodding along at the moment with
Yeah.
those 50, like low 50 scores. As a coach with about if you had 700k to spend on someone, you really want to be getting someone that's kind of pushing closer to the 60 mark with that kind of money. And McInnes, yes, he'll give you a good score every week, but he's not giving you anything like any huge upside at the moment, which is probably going to hurt a lot of teams in the long run with that kind of cash associated with him. What I'd really like would be McInnes to not get an injury, but maybe only get like a 10-minute stint, something like that, and have a bad score. So then he'll be a decent pickup at the low 600k mark because at the moment his price is just too locked in to be worth the cash.
Yeah, well, I hope they only go low considering I own him. But
Yeah.
I think he's getting the minutes there, so there's enough good signs. But I think until he gets maybe a couple of one or two like massive scores of 65 plus, you don't really look to buy him. But for me, he's
Yeah.
averaging 53, so I think he's just a safe hold there.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be happy with that most weeks. The only reason I'd sell him is if you didn't have Haas and he was like one of those players that you could trade up to get to
Yeah,
Haas. Like, yeah, that's the only real
which I've
reason to get
toyed
rid of
with
a
like a
player
needle
like that.
between Watson or McInnes to sell. And I
That's an
don't know.
interesting one.
McInnes is a green
Yeah.
tick, averaging 53. Watson is
Well,
averaging 60, but a red dot.
yeah, if it comes down to needing a player on the field, I would sell Watson. But if it comes down to just the best player in that position, I would sell McInnes.
Yeah, because I'm going to have 17, 18 if I sell Watson. So I'll probably lean towards McInnes there.
Yeah, I think so because Watson having dual position as well for Watson is just so valuable at
Yeah,
the moment because you need a backup hooker and the only backup hooker to Mamazelis is like a pod type play with like Grant has really struggled this year. The
yeah.
only other players, like you said, Wade Egan's probably the next best hooker at the moment because he's scoring 50s every week.
Or Blake Brayley.
Blake Brayley's been doing really well. Yeah, there's not a lot of trustworthy hooker options this year, which is kind of surprising because they've normally been like the stalwart players that give you a good score every week. Like most of them are kind of just like averaging in the 30s, 40s, which is really not good. Like even Starling, like now that Paddy's kind of cemented his spot there, he's just going to keep losing minutes. And then they signed Brayley today. The Raiders, like they really don't trust Starling there at all. So I don't see him like keeping on with a 50 plus average. It's struggling at the moment in the hooker position.
Yeah, it's interesting what to do with the hooker, and that's why I think you got to hold Watson as he's probably going to finish as the best hooker for the whole year.
Yeah, exactly.
But Iongi, where do you sit with him? I feel he's a very good player, Iongi. Like we've shown some very good stuff of what he can do, and a very quick player. Reason for me I'm holding is when Moses comes back, the Eels historically would get better, and there's not much worse Iongi can get with Moses back. Do you think Iongi sits as a hold until Moses, or is it like if you need to downgrade him to a 250k player, then up to get to Haas, you sell him?
Nah, I think long term Yongi is a hold. Plus,
Yeah,
selling him to a 250k player, you're not really making much from that anyway. Like, I don't think he holds enough value to be worth selling at this point in time. And yeah, like you said, as soon as the Eels get their full complement back, being Moses, they'll be a lot better. It's so crazy how good the Eels become when Mitch Moses is in that team. So yeah, Yongi was going to be a season long hold anyway for me this year. So yeah, going to stick strong with him.
yeah, he's a very good player. He's electric. A player that I think is very interesting this year, as we all knew he was highly touted when he was on the Bulldogs, didn't do very well fantasy at all. But Paul Alamoti, 22 break even, should have the goal kicking this week, and we all know what he can do playing on the defending full-time defending premiers there. And do you have any interest in him as a pod centre, maybe if you were looking to downgrade a Dylan Lucas to a centre?
Yeah, I actually don't hate Alamotti as a bit of a pod. The problem is he's already so expensive, like
Yeah,
560k for a pod. Yeah, he's a dual position player, but he's so expensive already. He's playing on the wing this week, which hasn't shown to hurt his scores too much. I think hurting his scores most will be not playing alongside Cleary, to be honest. But yeah, gets a lot more base stats playing through the center. I would prefer him at center, but currently Jenkins is there. Like I said, you never know what could happen. What could happen there in the next couple of weeks. But definitely prefer Alamotti.
yeah, you go from a 34 average with a 32 average without Cleary to a 37 average with Cleary. Like that's the same with Isaac Tungo. They both average more with Cleary. It's just the Cleary effect, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I think he's one that you kind of look to hold unless and then or look to hold, but I won't be buying him.
Yeah, it's similar to Tungall, right? When he first came into the Panthers team, was an absolute gun, was killing it, getting huge scores. He was seen as like top three center as well in his second season, I think. The first season he only averaged around the high
Yeah,
30s, low 40s, I think. But that second year he went huge and he was a gun center. I think the same thing could happen at Alamotti this year. But at 560k at the moment, I've got enough cheapy centers running around to add another center to the mix currently.
yeah. So you go on with Corey Horsburgh, who's been absolutely killing it. He would have had a monstrous score if he didn't get those missed tackles and penalties and
Yeah.
sin bin there. Do you think that he's probably the next best mid option to buy this week behind Payne?
Yeah. If you don't have Horsburgh, I think you kind of have to get him in. Like he's only in 20% of teams as well, so he's not hugely owned. He could still be will make another 100k even because I think now that he's playing at lock as his position, he should be scoring in the mid 50s going forward, similar to McInnes, right? I think he's going to be pretty much a plotter, and then every now and then he's going to get a big score. And I think you have to be jumping on Horsburgh for
Yeah,
that.
still with that break even and that price, and he showed like really good signs on the weekend, and is a massive offload of the football too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
They got destroyed, and he was still able to put out a 53, and he was on about -2 after 10 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. It was an interesting game. It was very back and forth for the Raiders, but it just goes to show they can pull out a score when they get the rub of the green. So
Yeah. So you got Nico Hynes is one that you're big on, and this will be the last player or a couple of last players we go through here. And yeah, so you're interested in Nico Hynes. Talk us through why you are.
yeah, I've had him since the start of the year. The only reason that he, lost the goal kicking and lost a bit of the kick meters to start the year was because of that groin injury that he was carrying into the year. Similar to like NRL physio's analysis of him, he was just carrying a bit of an issue, bit of an injury into the start of the year, and what was hampering him. I don't disagree that Trindle's going to, eat into those kick meters because he's a great kicker of the ball, Trindle, and purposefully they should be sharing it around between the two just to benefit the Sharks, push for a premiership really, because the Sharks are definite contenders this year. But Hynes is going to still have to be in everything that they do because he showed in round one that when he takes a back seat and Trindle takes over, the Sharks aren't as good. And, Panthers ended up winning that game in Las Vegas, but the Sharks over the last 2 weeks, Hynes has got a lot more involved, and the stats show that as well. So I'm all over Hynes, and I think he's only going to get better from here. So if you can pick him up while he's still, not cheap, but cheaper than what you would be paying for him, yeah, I rate it.
Yeah, he's looking quite interesting. Kick meters is down this year, which is probably a bit of a
That's
red
the biggest
flag.
hindrance.
Maybe
Yeah,
kind of going in there, but I mean he's still gone 64 and a 74 there, scoring wise, and does the goal kicking. He's a very good defensive player too, Nico, like one of the better defensive halves there. But yeah, very good attacking player and a pretty good draw coming up there too. So if you were to trade Cleary, which I don't think you should, but if you were, I think Nico would be one of the better players to bring in this week for him.
yeah. Don't hate it, but obviously hold Cleary at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much all the players we're gonna go through. Do you have any ones that you want to talk about or comment on?
Well, like I said at the top of the recording, if you don't have Humphreys or May at the moment, absolutely get them in because we kind of actually I spoke about this because we had a question from one of our listeners on our podcast this week around Humphreys and like, have I missed the boat or should I get him in? Like, is he worth it at this point? He is averaging in the low 70s and he's only 580K currently. If any other player was averaging in the low 70s and was worth 580K, you would pick him up in a heartbeat. So yeah, don't think that you've missed the boat or you've lost all the cashing, the cash, the salary around him already. He's got plenty of cash to make. Yeah, get him in if you can and if you haven't already, because he should be in everyone's team by now.
Yeah, he's doing bulk of the kicking and still that -4 break even. Like if he goes another 50, he's 640K. He could go a little bit lower this week playing the Panthers, which I think will be a really good
Yep.
test for them. But he scored 74 against the Sharks, who are close to the Premiership favourites.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, and talking about May, you think he's the second best captaincy option after Haas this week?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd trust him over Humphreys at the moment just because of his stats are all in base, right? He's all meters, all tackles, has a tackle bust and an offload in him as well. So yeah, I'd say May's probably the second best option this week.
Yeah, 73 average and win minutes over 50. And if you didn't start with Haas or May, unfortunately, who would you be buying this week?
Oh, you have to go Haas. Like, he's the obvious option that everyone's bringing in. I think he's what 8% of teams have bought him in this week. Like, he's
Yeah,
he's almost the most owned player in fantasy, or will be by the end of or by the start of this weekend.
well, the most sold play is actually Nathan Cleary, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's insanity to me. I understand it getting up to Haas, but to sell Cleary, you're going to have to bring him in again in a week or
Yeah,
two's time when he's back. Like you said before, if he comes back and scores a 70 or an 80 off rip when he's back from an injury or from the concussion, yeah, you're going to be behind the eight ball already trying to scramble to get him in. So,
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll try to get you on another podcast during the season.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Will. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, we're good.